All right, I'd like to show you how to make a chart or graph within Google Docs. As you can see, I have already created my data table. The first thing I need to do is click in the cell where I want my chart to start, and I want it to be right under my data table, so I click in cell A14 and highlight that. Then I go up to my toolbar and I click on Insert, because I do want to insert a chart, and then choose Chart from the menu, and then I get this pop-up. There's nothing in it because I haven't selected my data ranges yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is click Select Ranges, and that takes me back to where I can see my data table. You need to pick two different ranges, one for your x-axis and one for your y-axis. I really want my days to run along the x-axis, and then I want the total pay to run along the y-axis for this chart. So I'm going to click on the word day, hold my mouse down and drag until I get all of the data that I want included in the chart, including the label. It is important that we get the label so that it will include the label on our chart. And as you can see, this was cells A5 through 10, and that is now reflected in this first box right here. I don't actually need to change that. I just want to point out that you can see whether it's right or wrong. Confirm. The next thing I want to do is add my y-axis of data. So I click on Add Another Range. And then over here I click on Total Pay, because remember I definitely want to include my labels. And I drag down so that all of my data that I want to include in the chart is highlighted. Now I have two ranges, A5 through A10 for my x-axis and E5 through E10 for the y-axis. And then I click OK. And I can see that it's made a simplified table over here of what it's going to graph. That looks correct to me. So there's two more things I need to do inside this screen. I definitely want to use row 5 as headers, and that's where it's going to include those data labels that I grabbed. And then I just pick the type of chart that I want. So this one I want to be a bar graph. The other thing that's really important is to make sure this box Use Column A as Labels is checked, so that your data will come out as you want it to with a single graph. Most of the time this is the default, sometimes it's not, so you just need to double check and see if Use Column A is checked so that your graph looks like you want it to, which it does. I can see that on day 1, I made $21.75. On day 2, I made a little over $50. Day 3, I didn't work, so I made nothing. And I can examine my pay scale that way. And then I simply click Insert, and now the chart resides right below my data table on my spreadsheet.